Hey, good evening. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines, a subject that's been very much on the cards in the last few weeks has been communication. And communication has been deemed to be just speaking English. And of course, what I'm referring to is the relationship between Lena and Mike. And Mike came over from America and he wanted to meet Lena. And he met Lena and they got along very well. Now, what then followed was the focus of how Lena was able to interact with a group of people who were all speaking English. And of course, she doesn't speak English. Very, very little. Now there comes a point when you're learning a language, for as much as I know, I've learned a little Tagalog, I've learned a little Chinese, and as a professional singer, I sang in many different languages. Songs that came up in the hit parade, French, Spanish especially, and one even from Israel. I sang that one too. So, what is the emphasis? Why the focus just on the language alone? The language alone does mean an awful lot. It means a terrific amount. And so the subject of this talk is the importance of being able to speak the language, whatever that language is. Now, let's look at how it affected Lena. Well, actually, it affected Lena for a few minutes out of 24 hours. Because as soon as the camera was turned off, Lena came alive. Now, a lot of people are inhibited by the camera being on. It just so happens that Beth is completely the opposite. When people have met Beth, they have thought that she was really very reserved and quite shy. She doesn't interact as easily with strangers as a lot of other people. Now, I've learned, I feel in many ways quite shy and reserved myself, though you might not believe it, but that's because you see me in front of the camera, and you see Beth in front of the camera too, and you assume that both of us are like that all the time. But no, that's an on-camera persona, if you want to call it that. And what it means is that we've learned to do a performance, and even right now, I could be described as performing. I'm performing because I'm having to put together something coherent that will explain or describe or go in detail into the art of language. Now, language is not just verbal. It really isn't just verbal. And many of you have been reading Lena's body language, as well as just facial expressions. There's so much to communication. And to just write it off as being English is, it's just a gross understatement. So, how does anyone look? There are several parts to communication. You could say that there's the physical communication, which is talking, and there's also something else. There's something called, say, affinity or liking or love, and there's the amount that you can agree on. So now, in the case of men to women, sometimes that item of agreement is quite sadly lacking, or maybe not sadly, but lacking. In other words, in say Mike's case, Mike was a nuts and bolts kind of guy. He loved tractors. He had, I think, several tractors, vintage tractors from days gone by, which along with his father, who had now passed, they had, or he had, restored and loved to drive them. He was a farm boy. So all of that was something that he would come alive with when you started to talk about those things. So cars, tractors, engines, problems like that were very much of interest to Mike. Now, I'm just posing the question, do you think that Lena knows a great deal about tractors? Something that she has actually never seen up close in her entire life? No, I don't. She probably doesn't. What she needs to know and be able to agree on is how she is treated in a personal way, in a physical way, by the man in her life. Now, are you, the viewer, in a position to judge whether that is good, bad, or indifferent? I think your ability to judge would be limited to the amount of time that you can watch, unless you're an absolute expert. So I'm guessing I may possibly be addressing someone who is absolutely skilled in looking at people's body language. So we're really talking to the average guy, you know, the you and me of people. And I know when someone is happy to see me if they smile. And depending whether they, as they always say, is he smiling with his eyes as well. So it's not just on the mouth. There's the Burt Lancaster, the old movie star, was skilled at smiling just with his mouth. He would go, and he'd have this big array of teeth. I think he had about 67 teeth, not the usual. And that was his trademark. He could smile in this icy cold way. But most people, if they smile with the eyes as well, or they don't smile at all. Now, depending on how inhibited a person is feeling, their ability, their willingness, their connectedness with the smiling technique can be very limited. Now, we all know now, because of the number of videos that we've seen of Lena, that she was very uncomfortable with the camera. And if it was a big conversation where various people were interrupting, interjecting, and putting in their two penn'orth, she wasn't able to do that because she didn't speak English. Now, do you think that she looked like that when it was just Mike and her? Now, I can tell you that she didn't. And when she came back today after having 2 days and 2 nights with Mike, where it was just the two of them, roaming around Cebu, having dinner, doing stuff together at the mall, walking along hanging in hand, all of that other stuff that's involved in communication. And she came back and she was absolutely glowing. She looked beautiful. And so obviously something happened there which was not dependent on all of those things that she has been so heavily criticized on. So let's get it into where it's general, where the conversation is a general thing, not just focusing on two people that we know. There's more to, when it's a romantic relationship, there's more to it than just talk. An awful lot more. Now, very often when a man comes here to be with a Filipina, very often the woman, the Filipina, is very shy about speaking English, even though she may actually be quite good. I wish I was as good at English as most Filipinos. If I was as good at Visayan as most Filipinos are at English, but too embarrassed to actually try. Well, I'd be very happy. I would be able to converse to quite a degree in Visayan, and that's what I'm trying for now, because I do think it is very important. I'll tell you why it's important. Not just for getting people, two people, the one-to-one, man to woman, hoping for a forever after happy. Not just that, but what about when the man has to interact with family, and they are very embarrassed or very shy about speaking English, especially to a foreigner, because they know that the foreigner speaks very good English, or normally does anyway. So he is going to miss such an incredible amount. Often when I'm at the table and we're having dinner and it's the full family, now I may well tune out exactly the same as Lena does. I know I'm bringing it back to Lena again, but I observe Lena and I see myself, because somebody said, she looks bored. How can you be interested in a conversation which is being held in a language that you don't know? Of course she is actually bored. She doesn't want to not be there, but yes, she would probably be a lot more interested if the camera wasn't on and everybody was speaking in Visayan, because that's how I've seen her. Okay, now when I'm at the table and it's a full family, everybody's speaking in their language. Well, so they should. So they should be speaking in their language. It's their country, it's their home, it's their dining room table, it's their dinner, and they should be speaking in their own language. And so who's at fault here? Me. If it's me that's feeling estranged, if it's me that's feeling out of it, if it's me that's feeling, gosh, I wish I understood what was going on, that's my responsibility. So it is important to speak the language. It's not everything, because what will happen between any couple where there's not quite enough language, somebody will get the Filipina lessons. It probably is too much to expect that the foreigner will then find out how to speak the language, because we are lazy, we are terrible at this, and we should be ashamed of ourselves. We're coming into a country where everybody would be so delighted if we would just learn to speak even the most primitive conversational Visayan, Cebuana, Tagalog. They would be delighted. You know, I actually make people smile by saying salamat. And they repeat it. They repeat it and they smile to each other. If I go and I'm served at the bakery and I get what I need, and then when I've given my change and I'm walking away, I say salamat. And the girls, usually 2 or 3 girls at the bakery, and they all look at each other and they smile. Are they laughing at me? No, I don't believe they are. They're smiling because it's nice for them to hear that a foreigner is making even the smallest attempt at learning their language. So they welcome that and they admire our clumsy attempt to speak their language, in exactly the same way as foreigners admire, in this case, Filipinos for being able. I'm just amazed that some kid, I can talk to Bibi and she understands me, and she's 10 years old and here's me, I don't know, the old man of the sea, and I can't converse with her in any way. I know a few I know a few expressions that I have learned and I can interject and get away with, but I can't understand anything that's put back to me as a response to my little learned parrot fashion phrase. So, yes, it's important. Yes, us foreigners, lazy devils that we are, should be learning more, and we should actually be telling people that we speak to how much we admire them for speaking our language in their country. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Thanks for being with me. Thanks for making comments. Thanks for liking. And what we're trying to do now is we're trying to get people to share, because we feel that there are so many OFWs out there who would just like to see a little part of home. That's why we do our sunset talks, where I talk at the sunset and show the fields and the rice fields and the rolling hills and dogs barking in the distance and chickens and all of those things. People doing their laundry out of a big black flat basin. And OFWs miss this, and we would like you as an OFW to share these images and these talks. Thank you, and bye for now.